Okay, I believe I'm live right now. It's my first time doing this from OBS. Um, Copy and paste your stream. Why does it say no data? It doesn't make any sense. But I'm connected from OBS. I don't want to be continuing this video for no reason whatsoever. That'd be stupid. Well, apparently I can chat on this. Apparently I can chat on here, but I don't know if people can see me. I don't know. It doesn't say, because it says start sending us your video from your streaming. So I don't know what that means, honestly. Oh, let me see something. Huh. I gotta see something here. Yes. Technical difficulties. What can we say? I'm the one doing everything here. Okay. All right, so that's going. Let me go into my something here. Let me go into my technical difficulties. Oh, apparently it's working. What can we say? Let me like my own video here. Everything here. Just do that. That's a thing. Okay. So I think I'm live now. I don't know why it would say connect your coder. Oh, maybe because I'm not using an encoder. That's possible. I'm just connecting from there. All right, so let's talk about some political stuff right now. I don't have anything in mind specifically, but I do have quite a bit on my mind. Bill and Hillary Clinton refused to testify in Epstein inquiry. Now, I should have made more coffee. This is a bit late though. Now, why would the Clintons be the only ones to have to testify? They should get Trump in there. They should get that Elaine Maxwell. Get everybody in there. Create transparency. You know, what do you have to hide, right? Why do they release files? Tons of files redacted, so you don't know what it says. What's the point of releasing it in the first place? What the hell is the point? We deserve a government of complete transparency, of which we don't have, of which we never had. Facing contempt, threats. You know why he's not going to go and testify, and why they don't subpoena the president. I mean, he could sue private individuals, he can sue organizations, but he cannot be subpoenaed to take part in this. I don't mind Bill Clinton going. Bill Clinton should be going to answer, because it's a serious accusation. That's why we need reform of statute of limitations, because statute of limitations doesn't erase the crime. The crime still happened, right? So let's get that going, right? So this is it's really sad, because it went from something that could be bipartisan, so to speak, to become a political witch hunt. It could have been, well, hey, Trump, Elaine Maxwell, Bill Clinton, everybody, come here, answer questions in front of the cameras. None of that pleading the fifth bullshit. And let's find out what's going on here. But of course, they're not doing that. They're just going after like one party, because the Republicans run the House. So of course they're not going to subpoena their own people, and that's a sad fact, because it shouldn't be that way. That's why the founders, this country is a mess. It needs a lot of reform. That's why I created reformtheworld.org, so that we can work together all over the world to eradicate corruption, to eradicate cancer, military industrial complex, big pharma, so we can influence and actually infiltrate governments around the world to enact true change for the people. You know, eradicate homelessness, all this, all this, all these tariffs, anti-free trade. You know, because listen, let's not get off topic now. But when people are able to trade with one another, they're both better for it. You know, big government getting in the middle there, it's never a good thing. It's never a good thing. And the only companies who are pro-tariff are the ones who have something to gain by it, because they don't want competition. They want a limited amount of competition to whatever's going on in this country, so they can jack up the prices, so they don't have to create superior products. You know, they have new EVs in China that are superior to anything we have here, but they're not allowed to compete. You know, and it's sad, because we could have had the best technology, we could have had the best of everything, but we chose to bankrupt the nation with the military industrial complex and just waste money instead of fixing. And you know, we just kick the can down the road. We shouldn't say we, because it's not us who are responsible for the mess. It's the corrupt, parasitic, disgusting politicians who need to go to prison, and they need to work for the people for once, building infrastructure. Not just, why do people just wallow away in prison? That is so ridiculous. So ridiculous. Let them work for society so they can repay society for their crimes. Why not learn new skills so they can even better themselves and society? Imagine somebody goes there as a laborer and they learn electrician work. You know, that's an amazing skill. It can help the society. It can help society through their labor, and then it can help themselves once they get out of prison and learn, you know, how to be responsible, law-abiding. But you know, when we have laws that certain people are above, then what is the point of being law-abiding anymore? We just have a different tiered justice system, multi-tiered. And that is pathetic. That's an embarrassment. And honestly, we need to do something about it. So yeah, you know, hey, these people, Bill Clinton, Hillary, whatever, everybody. I don't know about Hillary. I mean, does she know about it? I don't know. Maybe bring her in too. Why not? Bring Chelsea in too. Why not? The more the merrier. It's better to have more than to you know, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So and why not bring everybody? Everybody. Elaine Maxwell, you know, what did the Secretary of State, I don't know who met with her exactly, the Justice Department official, what did they agree upon? That got her transferred to a better facility. You know, so many different opportunities, but you have people in office right now who just don't care, who are just in it for the political witch hunt, so you can get a pat on the back, good job, you know, you're one of the boys. You know, it's pathetic. And it actually, I want to say, it devalues the purpose of the crimes that have taken place. It devalues everything. And it turns it into just a game where it becomes left and right. And there is no left and right. That's what they don't want you to know. There's only truth and there's bullshit. And there's bullshit peddled Both sides of the aisle, as people like to say. And there's truth within the margins. There is truth. Like the amount of taxes that we pay and the amount of sunken cost roads, infrastructure that are just breaking down and falling apart that we have to keep paying for nonstop to maintain. When there's a better way, to improve society, to create efficiency as opposed to runaway debt, to get things done. Like high-speed rail. Why is it so difficult to create high-speed rail in this country? You know why? Because you have rule by bureaucracy, by committee. What is different? What is the difference between the way the bureaucracy works in this country and the way it worked in the Soviet Union? Not much. Maybe you have a degree of free enterprise. But when it comes down to getting things done, it's just all over the place. You have counties that are trying to tell the towns what to do. The towns are telling the boroughs, the residents. You have ordinances. You have state laws. You have federal laws. You just so much going on that nothing gets coordinated, nothing gets done, and that is a huge problem in this country. But we should really talk about the world, because not everybody lives in what is known as the United States. So there's problems all over the world. There's a lot of solutions that can be done, that can get done to better the people's lives. But, good luck with this parasite in office. All these parasites who are just sucking away at our lifeblood. They just get in because, they played game. They played ball with the big corporations. Big pharma, whatever's in their district or in their state. They played ball. They got their campaign donations going. And once they won office, hey, now it's time to pay us back. Okay? Past this, they don't even write their own laws. They don't even write their own legislation. They get it written by lobbyists who work for all of these different corporations. It's just they might as well work for NASCAR. They might as well be in NASCAR, because they should have all these corporate names all over their fucking. They should just wear NASCAR jackets. Honestly, they should get tattooed as well. Actually, that's a great idea. Hey, you want to be corrupt? Get that shit tattooed on your face, all over your body. How about that? So let's look around here. Over 12,000 feared dead after Iran protests, as video shows bodies lined up at morgue. Now it's a real hot mess over there. For sure, they need a revolution. Hopefully, one that's going to empower the people. But that's very rare. Just because something is a democracy doesn't mean it's going to empower the people. Because all a democracy does is it brings together a sort of civil war of factions. And, it's just a never ending. Now, I'm not going to say a dictatorship is what anybody needs either. So, wow, 12,000 feared dead in Iran anti-government protests. And it was just one guy.
Valdi school police officer Adrian Gonzalez. He is the...
Yeah, he's saying he's a coward. He didn't run into school. We need, of course, what? Okay, let's talk about guns now. But what is wrong with background checks? It seems like anybody can just go and get a weapon. Why don't they have these type of crimes all over the world? That's the thing. However, let's see here. We have the opportunity to eradicate cancer. We have the opportunity to eradicate homelessness, because look at all this space we have in this country and all over the world. We can't build homes so people can better themselves. We cannot do that. That's, not the free market. But in a free market, you're going to have natural monopolies that crop up. Because that's the way it is. The bigger ones cannibalize the smaller ones. Then they create cartels of different corporations. Now, that's not in every single industry, but certain ones where there's a limited amount of supply, especially. And that's a legitimate purpose of a legitimate state to come in and say, no, this is bad. This is bad for the consumers. This is bad for society. This is no good. We need competition. We need to open up healthcare to more competition. Let's bring in small businesses all over the place. Let's open up the red tape. Let's cut that shit off. Let's cut it out. All they're thinking about is these big, huge corporations. And why do we have corporations? Why do we have corporate status, identities? Why, right? It's to protect the CEOs from liability. So they can kill people, they can poison people, they can deny people's health care, let's say. And then if they die, well, if the person ends up suing them and having a successful lawsuit, well, it's not the CEO or one of those guys who are going to pay any price. It's going to be it's the cost of doing business for the corporation. It's just United Health, for example. It's just write a check, okay, or they'll appeal it and get it lowered and then write a check or whatever. This happened. This happened because as a result of corrupt politicians who were told many, many years ago, listen, create a new status for us as corporations, as C corps, you have LLCs, and ridiculous. Why do we have all these different categories, especially corporate non-liability status? That's ridiculous. How they can just bribe politicians and get away with it. Something seriously wrong. And that's why nothing gets done for the people. They're going to say, listen, no tax on overtime. No tax on overtime before an election. Why? Because, well, they rouse people up. Yeah, I still hear about people saying, oh, whatever happened with that no tax on overtime thing? Well, I could tell you what happened. It was just bullshit. Talk. No action. And that's how you fool the masses. That's why we know that democracy isn't all what it is, what it's supposed to be. There's a huge flaw. Let's say a huge flaw, especially when you have a watered down piece of garbage education system. I should be really utilizing my screen because, why would I set that up, right? So, it's sad what's going on in Iran, okay? It's really sad. But in a way, it's hopeful because there could be a lot of good going on, Hopefully they have some factions that are fighting and it's not more of just a general unhappiness and anger. Hopefully it's organized. It's going to be difficult though, but the thing is, if Trump, as he said he will, approve some strikes, well, that could create what's called blowback, and it could possibly unite the people against the United States. You know, and that's possible. Or it can kind of fragment what's going on right now, and that would be a serious problem. You know, it's better to work with behind the scenes and to enact change. You know, but you know, anything, most different outcomes are better than what's currently going on in Iran. You know, what's currently ruling Iran. You know, you have the Ayatollah, which is a silly name, honestly. Ayatollah. Ayatollah Rockarola. But it's a funny name. But you know, he's more of a figurehead. You know, he's a religious figurehead, they call. You know who's really in charge are the military. The Republican Guard or whatever the hell. And so, you know, working behind the scenes, you can influence generals and commanders, you know, to let's get rid of this shit. Let's start something else here. Let's improve society. You know, it's difficult because even what you end up with is not going to be ideal. The ideal vision that we in Reform the World have for, you know, a country. You know, a country, which is just an imaginary line on a map, basically. You know, it's all about the people that comprise of the country. You know, it's just political boundaries. That's all it is, really. It's arbitrary. It's not, you know. But let's go into it here. You know, a source inside Iran who was able to call out told CBS News on Tuesday that activist groups working to compile a full death toll from the protests, based on reports from medical officials across the country, believe the toll was at least 12,000. Wow. And possibly as high as 20,000. That's a lot of people. And I saw that they're executing this one guy. He's like a young guy. Like a puffy coat. I just saw his face pop up. Or I don't know if I can find it. You know, he's going to be executed basically on Wednesday, which is today, at least Eastern Standard Time. Because, you know, okay, Trump makes Iran pledge. Like, why would he do that? Like, why would you want to say that? What you're going to do? Why would you want to broadcast that? So look at this. They're starting to hang people. You know, it's sad, really. It is. Nobody deserves that. You know, this is just honestly, I probably shouldn't even look at that, really, right? You know, YouTube is kind of iffy. So it's a little bit of a child's game on here. Let's put it that way. You know, they want to be PG at all moments. And why ask if it's made for kids or not, the video? When you make a video, it asks, is it made for children? No. Then why you have to be a PG rated content provider? Doesn't make any sense. Alright. Oh, yeah, this is the guy I saw, actually. He looks European, to be honest with you. Irfan Sultani. I don't know if this was after he was arrested or... I don't know. 26-year-old protester Irfan Sultani, arrested last week, is now facing an imminent death sentence. Unbelievable. Activists and rights groups, instead of reforming and let's build upon this country, you know, it's difficult because you have a lot of sanctions going on, but their legitimacy doesn't exist. It's built on a lie. So you're never going to have the proper system of governance when it's built upon a lie, when it's built on ignorance of the population. It's always going to be fractured. And then, even though you have sanctions, you have, I don't know if they have embargoes, I don't think so. You have, just not a lot of trade going on right now. It's really difficult. And then you have mismanagement of resources as well. Instead of building things to benefit the people, these cowards, these elitists, they want to live like kings inside their palaces, and they eat foods that the regular people can only imagine. It's disgusting, actually. And that's what needs to change. We need to go in those palaces and that's it, because the economics of the future begs us for a change. Every person who dies of cancer begs us for change in the world, because all of the deaths that happen are pure opportunity costs of tomorrow. So every person of whom you know is and dies of, let's say, heart disease, okay? Heart disease. Now, if we put proper resources towards health and longevity research, that would have never happened. But when you're putting in $1.5 trillion a year for the military, well, of course there's a limited amount of resources to go around. And you're building tanks and aircraft carriers, missiles, so on and so forth. Of course we're trickling, like the trickle down economics that Reagan talked about. We're trickling in slow walking all this technological innovation. But once we get rid of all the bullshit, all the useless clutter, the bloat, the corruption, then finally we're going to be able to transform into something that you can honestly only dream of, where workers are no longer going to be slaved away, where they're going to be inside careers that they truly enjoy, because workers' rights are a detriment to society, to societal outcomes. And it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen right now. We need to gather together, come up with solutions for the post-capitalism economy of the future. Let's incorporate AI. Let's incorporate automation. People are scared of automation. People are scared because, let's look at this here. You know why they're scared? Because they're scared to lose their little puny jobs. These little cashier jobs at McDonald's. Because they have nothing else. They have children to raise. They don't have a piece of paper they call a degree. So they're scared. They have nothing else. Society has failed them. Instead of employing them to gain credentials and skills and training opportunities, we just tax them, we put them down, we ridicule them, and then we say we might implement AI in order to eliminate this redundancy. Now, of course, if you frame it that way, how do you think they're going to feel? Of course they're going to be scared, angry, anti-technology, because they have nothing else. That's it. They have to feed their children. Now, nobody in this world should have to go without feeding their children or go hungry. We have so much food in this world, so much space for everyone to own their own home. Because, listen, homeless people, you can call them lazy. You can call them whatever the hell you want. But you know what? How are they ever going to be a productive member of society if they don't have anything? If they have to build everything by themselves, and where are they going to stay at? A hotel, a motel, which is going to charge them exorbitant amount of money. You know, they have to constantly pick up cans or whatever the hell they're doing in order to pay. So how are they going to present themselves and buy new clothes to get that job or train for that career that they could be great for? They could have the aptitude of becoming a nuclear engineer, but they're never going to get there because they don't have that piece of paper. They don't have that. They don't have the financial resources to become a student, and they can't subsidize themselves. So we're actually neglecting the potential of society. You know, we have hundreds of thousands and millions of possible doctors, engineers. I'm not going to say lawyers, because why do you need to go through a law school in order to study law? That doesn't make any sense to me. You know, they just don't want to be opened up to competition. They want to, you know, they paid all their money to go through law school, or maybe their dad, you know, spoon fed them. So therefore, they want to keep all that money. They want to get all that money in there. You know, I got my law degree. I passed the bar, you know. Therefore, you're below me. You know, people are trying to get in. Nah, there's a glass ceiling, okay? That's how society is all over the world. We have all these little glass ceilings all over the place that prevents people like you and me from becoming the best of our ability. And you like to say we're living in a free society. Does a free society prevent us from living up to our potential? That's not a free society. This is a corrupt, archaic piece of garbage society. Horrible. And we deserve better. We deserve so much better. It's not going to happen until we unite and do something about it. Simple as that. Really, that's simple. I'm just laying out the cards right there. We're just going to be told lies every 2 to 4 years, okay? Depending on where you live. Gonna be told some bullshit, okay? Like a fairy tale. You know, we're gonna healthcare reform. Everybody, you know, everybody's gonna get something. I'm gonna get you a stimulus check. I'm gonna get you tax free on tips. And then they get in, okay? They get in. You don't hear anything about that anymore, because they know. They know that the people are ignorant. You know how they know that? Because look at the education system. That is a watered down, so they can break our minds. So they can put us on this assembly belt of stupidity. So they can destroy our dreams, destroy our potential by teaching us stupidity. There's nothing wrong about learning basic arithmetic, history, you know, of course, you know, subjective history, POV sort of stuff. It's not enough, you know, but it's not on top of that. You know, you have teachers that are just there for a paycheck. You know, they don't foster creativity. Let's leverage the interests of the student. Let's open it up so that people can be themselves in society. They stuff all this processed, ultra processed junk, cheap, cancer causing microplastics in our foods. They destroy our minds. It creates, honestly, it's like the Matrix. I mean, it's hard to say it's even a metaphor, to be honest with you. Is that by design? Is it by design? Well, does it matter? It's happening. It's happening. People deserve to eat for nutrition. That's how we are meant to eat. For nutrition. We are nutrient extractors. That is what food is for. It's like a piece of broccoli. That's, I don't know, vitamin A, vitamin K, sulforaphane, or whatever the hell they call it. A bunch of other stuff, iron or whatever. That's what you're extracting. Fiber, that's a big one, from that. But instead, they want us to see food as a sort of pleasure, like sex. Like, oh, check this out, It's like a sexy photo. Oh, look at this burger, it's so juicy. Just come to McDonald's today. But what are the nutrients in there? Where does the meat come from? How much antibiotics does it have? You have the FDA. Not FDA. So many different alphabet soup nonsense going out there. But they're bought out by the corporations as well. They're paid to look the other way. They call it what do they call it? I'm gonna call it. They're basically bought them out, so they can look the other way. And then you have somebody who, depending on president who's just going to put somebody in there who is from the industry. Like the EPA right now, Now, I'm not saying all that global warming stuff is all the way it should be. We can eradicate global warming without destroying the economy. But that's not going to happen because we have, like I said earlier, we have no coordination in the economy. It's all over. That's like a free fall. I'm doing this, you're doing that, California's doing this, New York is doing that. Meanwhile, you have some federal regulations that might pass, but it's so small, minuscule, because it's been influenced by the big corporations. Things that just look good on paper, they get gutted. There's so many different things. It's just like a huge civil war of bullshit. A huge civil war of bullshit. You have cattle ranchers who are just going out of business because there's 4 meat packers corporations in this country, and you want free enterprise? Four corporations that control all of the United States cattle industry? I don't think that's free enterprise. I think that means we need to break that shit up, bring in competition, so that we can empower millions of people in this country. Now, I'm not happy about the way, the slaughterhouses work. That's a personal thing, right? But there's a difference between my personal belief and how things should be in the world. We eat. We eat chicken. We eat fish. We eat beef. That's not going to change. I mean, yeah, we can come out with great meat alternatives, or even kind of lab grown meats, and maybe one day it's going to become a great, and you won't be able to tell the difference, and it'll be cheap and everything. But right now it's not. Okay, and there's a lot of people who are just put off by it. So we need to look at reality for what it is, and not what we want it to be all the time. You know, that's the main thing. And also, we're going to get better quality cuts once we bring in new competition. We're going to have to, we're not going to always have to import it from New Zealand and Australia. You know, get all the fucking antibiotics out of there. Let's incentivize. Listen, imagine it is revolutionary. Incentivize nutrient density in foods as opposed to just raw poundage. You know, just raw, like a huge fucking chicken leg. A fucking chicken that can't even walk collapses upon its own weight. As opposed to that, let's look at nutrient density. Like, yeah, this is a normal sized chicken, but it fucking tastes great and it's really good for you. That should be the emphasis. You know, we're creating these antibiotic resistant bacteria because we're just letting them use as much and as many antibiotics as they desire, as their hearts desire. It's like a free, it's just like candy, you know. Hey, you know, they're just pumping it out. You know, they're pumping it out. And when antibiotics don't work anymore, then, and we don't find any new ones, that's another thing we need to do. We need to really focus on that as a society. Put resources to save lives. You know, that's really important. Really important. You know, I'm a victim of the matrix in myself. I am. From where I came from. Horrible place. Horrible place. You know, I've been fed cheap stimulation all my life. And it was a difficult thing. It's actually a prison. You know, when you see your kids there playing video games all day, it's a prison. You gotta change your mindset. But the problem right now is the alternative. Yeah, you have sports and all this and that, but the alternative is so much better. Once we get rid of all these corrupt politicians and we actually enact change and true solutions to societal problems. You know, they count on, you know, they count on elections, kicking the can down the road sort of stuff. They count on that because that's their bread and butter. You know, why would they want to fix, even if they had the ability to, why would they want to fix healthcare when it just suits their interest to kick it down the road? You know, it just really does. Now, everybody has the possibility of having healthcare, you know, but we don't look outside the box. We don't see things outside the box that free enterprise and small business will drive healthcare in the future once we get rid of all these monopolies. And it's going to lower prices, but we should have a guarantee of service, of coverage. If you have cancer, you get what you need. You receive it because your health is the most important thing. And it should be the most important thing. There should be no denials when somebody needs a service. When there's the preventative care that might catch a cancer or whatever, really. There's so many different things. I keep saying it's cancer because it's a huge one. Now we need to bring small business in there. We just break it apart, you know, like an old Westinghouse building. Bring that cane over there and knock the shit out of it, really. Because everyone deserves a healthcare, the best healthcare that is possible. You know, without corruption, corruption-free. Corruption, bribery should be automatic, huge prison sentences. Because that's that's a destruction of the public trust. That is the corrosive nature of these parasites. We got IPAC, who, work. They're like a lobbyist for a country, basically. So if we're going to be the United States, let's work for the United States. Let's become United States first. And become the best and true free people. Income tax. Why not, instead of incentivize not doing a goddamn thing with your land, not improving it whatsoever, let's incentivize people building and improving the land and infrastructure so that society will become a better place, so that we utilize more square inch and square mile of all the stuff that's just freaking. You ever driving down the highway and you see the median? It's just huge miles and miles and miles of hundreds of miles of just grass and nothing. That's inefficiency. Okay, imagine all that. I'm not saying people should live there, but imagine the houses that can go there. Imagine high-speed rail, maybe high-speed rail right in the middle there. See, that stuff, instead of being left to politicians, should be left to experts. We need government by experts instead of politicians who are bribed. We need this. It's very important. And people, so I don't know, even know why I went bother to get in here. I suffer from brain fog. I suffer from all my life because that's how I know. That's how I know what the cancer is in this society. There's nothing wrong with video games. It's a cheap entertainment, but it's like a drug. It can be abused. I don't see it here. Work automation. Let me see here. Now this is gonna give me the software or something. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong thing. Will AI replace cashiers? See, that's a huge thing that people are worried about right now. Cashier rule. Why should somebody be forced to be a cashier? Why can't it be something better? You go through 15 years of school so you can ring up a fucking register? Really? You go through college so you can ring up flip a goddamn burger? Make a sandwich? If we can automate something and make it more efficient, then let's put these people to better use. We can become a product of our dreams. You think the person who's a cashier wants to just be a cashier? They had no other potential. Maybe they could have been a interior designer, an architect, or whatever, really. There's many things. Millions of different industries that are going to open up with the economy of the future. Industries that you don't even imagine right now. You can't even imagine it, honestly. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Like, could you imagine the technology today? How we are all online, live streaming, 50 years ago. So imagine the possibilities of the future. We can get there a lot sooner without impacting the economy, the environment, for example, negatively. We can all get there. We need a societal purpose. We need to see the truth for what it is. Let me see here. Let's look at this. Adoption of a full cashier-less systems like Amazon Go remain limited, with only 30 plus locations globally. You know, even with these huge corporations investing in this stuff, there's still a lot of red tape and a lot of added cost. And then also you have a lack of competition with Amazon, with other corporations, that it looks like technology is flying and we're getting places. But when you look at the opportunity cost of what we could have had, we would have been in a whole different place right now. So entry-level cashiers are most vulnerable to automation, while senior roles involving problem-solving or supervision retain some resilience. Let me see something here. I guess it's raining. I don't know, I heard something on the window here. Kind of paranoid. Let me see here. And for good reason. This world creates criminals. Criminals don't come out of nowhere. Society creates them. Through the education system, through, I mean, how shouldn't parenting be pretty obvious? I mean, you have a handbook for your earbuds. Why is there no handbook for optimal parenting outcomes? Why does everybody just do their own thing? Like as if there's no scientifically proven methods. You know, we need to get down to the basics and say, well, look at all these kids, how they end up, and how all these other kids end up. And what is the common denominator here? You know, what about head trauma? You know, that changes your personality. Why don't we look into that? Maybe we can change it, right? Imagine that. What skills are most demand? I don't care about that right now. Let's go back to news. Alright, so Bill and Hillary Clinton again refuse. You know, we need more than Bill and Hillary Clinton. Just because the Republican Party runs the House doesn't mean we just need people from one party to testify, to be subpoenaed. No, we need everybody. But that's just a case in point of what we're doing with here. Now Trump's Greenland push, it might be a thing where a lot of the people in Trump's orbit don't like NATO in the first place, so they're thinking, well, we can get Greenland, and then we can get rid of NATO as well. So you got 2 for 1 right here. Now it's really ignorant. I mean, because if you think about it, you want to solidify NATO in order to become a detriment to Russia, which has launched an illegal invasion of the Ukraine. So now you're just going to have this civil war going on, everything breaking apart, which emboldens Russia to continue their war. See, we would never have a Russia or North Korea in a society of the future because they will be dealt with. Okay. They'll be dealt with. One way or another. We'll have so much wealth in this country and all over the world that they'll just be dealt with without consequence. You know, without ever any ignorance, but with thoughtful, strategic action. Because no person deserves to struggle and suffer under an oppressive, disgusting regime. Just like the ones that are corrupt politicians, our desire for us. So New Jersey, child flu death. All right. That's going to be it for now, because my wife, my kid's mom just got home. So she's probably gonna talk a bit. Speaking of which, I don't even know if she is home. I heard the sound though. Interesting. Maybe not. I don't know. Okay. Anyways, county. Let's see here. Morris County awarded $9 million for Newark Pompton Lake Turnpike upgrades. So here we go again about roads. You know, these self-ingratiating, corrupt politicians over here. Look at their faces. You know, they've been playing ball all their life. So they're just living tax-free. All right. I think my kids, I'm going to have to open the door. Thank you for watching, everyone. I'm going to take off now.